Bless you. It's great again to connect with you today for another session in the book of Ezekiel. We're steadily coming to the end, even though we still have a few more chapters in which we need to complete. We are today's beginning chapter 35 of the book of Ezekiel. There are 48 chapters in the book. So we have about 12, is it 12? Would you say 12, 40, 48, 38 to 48? That is 10. And then probably 13 chapters left. This particular chapter has 15 verses, not a lot. It's not one of the longest ones or one of the shortest ones. Let me put it that way. I think it was chapter 2 of the book of Ezekiel. We have just a mere 10 verses. Let me look on that. Yeah, 10 verses. And then if you quickly turn to chapter 9, there's 11 chapters or 11 verses in chapter 9, and it and the variation is between 10 to 14 and now 15. But as we have found, or probably you haven't, I don't know how interested you've been, not so much doing it with me or reading with me, but doing some home studies for yourself, and you may even have done some very formal studies in the Old Testament scriptures. But as far as I can see, that the prophet Ezekiel was very, very important, at least when he turned up on the scene. God doesn't just call a person just to fill a gap, but he calls a person, he equips that individual because they have a very important job to do. They have an important task. I wouldn't even say it's a job. A job is something you get paid for. Now, God does certainly gives a very good wage to those who he calls. And so, but I think the task, it's more or less a very good word to use when it comes to being employed or being on the books of the Holy One. The task, because the task certainly is not easy. The task is hard. The task is very hard. It is very heavy, which again shows, and it would even tell us that the strength that we have once we have embarked or once we have begun what the Lord has called us, you, or the individual to do, certainly needs the strength of the Almighty. God certainly has to step into that picture and really help the one to accomplish what he has been given to do. So Ezekiel, at this very important juncture, when it comes to the children of Israel, the children of Judah in particular, they had just now been taken into exile. Well, when I say just, probably a few years have passed, a few months certainly has gone by. Nebuchadnezzar has gone into Judah. He has more or less destroyed Judah, Jerusalem, and most assuredly the temple. And the people of God are certainly discouraged. They are certainly demoralized because they're there thinking and believing that God the Almighty, the God of Abraham, their father, Isaac and of Jacob, would have come to deliver them by now. And even then still, there were some false prophets running around the place, shouting and proclaiming that within a certain amount of time, Within a certain amount of time, Adonai Elohim, the Almighty, the Sovereign Lord, would deliver them. And that was not what God had declared at all. To get a proper answer, I would encourage you to read the book of Jeremiah. I would really encourage you to read the book of Jeremiah. I think doing Ezekiel, the book, and also Jeremiah are two books that helps out each other. Now, I don't know if Ezekiel ever met Jeremiah. I don't know if Jeremiah had ever set eyes on Ezekiel. Don't know if they would have ever swapped notes. In my mind, I don't think so. I don't think so. However, I'm not an authority on these things, and I think that it would be great. It would be wonderful if somebody out there, I don't have to know you. If I do, that would be great. Could shed a bit of light on these things for all and sundry. I'm sure that you do informal studies, as well as you may have already done formal studies. And I'm sure you'd also tell everyone that even though you may have gone through the whole degree program of studying a particular area, whether it be theology, whether it be engineering, scientific literature, whatever it is, that even when you come to the end of your degree studies, that is when probably you begin to study, because learning is a lifelong thing. It's a lifelong exercise. And one just doesn't come to the end of formal university studies, seminary studies, theological studies, whatever it is that you've done, and you put down the books and you decide, well, that's it. I know everything. There's nothing else for me to know. And so therefore that's it. No. People are always learning, are always coming to some understanding of whatever that they have studied, that there is something more to know. You can always contribute. That is one thing. You can always give. You can always share. You can always empower others that are around you, us. But that doesn't mean that we know everything or that you know everything. Someone else, a little babe, well, let's say someone that is far younger than us, can always come and share something with us and tell us something that we have never heard or we never known. When we check it out for ourselves, it is very much true. So the book of Ezekiel the prophet Ezekiel was very, very important during his day and during his time. It was more or less we found out, and which he himself, I believe, explained it so well in some previous chapters before, about him being the watchman. He was very much the watchman for Judah, for God's people. Are we, can it be said, will it ever be said of us, if the Lord tarries, that you, me, that we were watchmen for God's people? I want it to be said of me that I was truly a watchman for God's people, and that whoever listened or whoever heard my voice, they didn't have to know me. They certainly didn't have to be, in the area, in the vicinity that I lived, worked, ministered, also. You don't have to be in the area. But by the very fact that through a medium such as this, you may have heard something that I may have said, I may have taught, I may have preached. And not only that, but the life that I live has certainly been a trait of being who a watchman should be. And that's important, especially in our day and in our time. Politically, our world really is, what else can we say? What else can we say? I have said sometime before that I'm looking at doing something in addition to this, of doing something to really look at, it's going to take a little time. You have to forgive me. I don't know how much longer I have to live. Not that I know I'm dying. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not seriously ill. So I don't want to frighten anybody. But, things like these you have to kind of really look at, consider carefully, talk, share to certain individuals that may or may not be on the program or be on, be around when we do it. So it's about addressing, really looking at what's happening around us. And when Ezekiel, have you ever, not so much for Ezekiel, but I'm wondering, have you ever sat where you are and really contemplated the times in which the prophets of God, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Amos, Joel, Malachi, Zephaniah, Zechariah? I don't know. You can probably think of any particular prophet or apostle if you want to really widen the area. But have you ever thought of them sitting down and really contemplating the times that they were living in? Because they could only look and think of the times in which they lived into what the Lord was saying or what the Lord was dealing with them about. We are living at a very, very advantageous point. I may have said this already, but why do I say that? I say that because we've got both the old and the new. We are reading that which the prophets have written, and we are also reading that which the apostles have written. So we've got the two in front of us. The prophets never had anybody, never had anything, more or less, so to speak, like what we have. They were writing what they were doing. The apostles was at an advantage more than the prophets. Why do I say that? Because the apostles could read what the prophets wrote. So they had that. And I would say, probably you, I don't know if you'd say the same, but for me, I can now read of what the prophets and the apostles have written and even consult the Lord, go to God. Because He's not going to contradict that which the prophets and the apostles have written now or what's happened during their time. He's only going to but confirm. And there's not anything new that He will bring, but if there's anything new that comes out of what the prophets and the apostles wrote, it's something that has always been there. To tell you the truth. It's just that it's the time is right. The time is right for me to then recognize and see what it is. That it is only that which the prophets and the apostles spoke about, really. Daniel was told to seal up, not to write what he saw or heard. So there were things I believe that he saw, there were things that he heard that we probably are not seeing or hearing yet. But when we begin to hear and see even the things that Daniel was not allowed to write about, it's going to confirm his word and the words and the testimonies of Daniel, of Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and such, all the way down to the apostles, Paul, Peter, James, John. There is something that they saw, I believe. There is something that they felt. There was something that they experienced that what they wrote, it was only but very small in comparison to what God had revealed to them. And Paul said that here. Paul said that he saw things, he heard things that he was not permitted to write. But the things, I believe there are things, and if the Lord tarries, really, I hunger and I thirst. But Jesus says, blessed are they who hunger and thirst. After what? Righteousness. They shall be filled. So I'm looking forward to that time when, the longing that I desire, the hunger and the thirst that I have will be filled and my thirst will be quenched. Excuse me. I'm going to read the entire chapter, 35th chapter of um, of Ezekiel, 15 verses. I'm going to read from the Jewish text, and then in our subsequent sections to follow, there's roughly about 5 to 6 other areas within that particular chapter that we are going to be looking at. Now this chapter tells us that the enemies of God's people, the enemies or the enemy of God's people, they're going to be destroyed. Israel, and when I say Israel, I'm including Judah and Benjamin, because as you know, Israel was split. It became two kingdoms, the northern kingdom and the southern. The southern kingdom became Judah, Benjamin. The northern kingdom had the 10 tribes, the other brothers linked at the top there. If you know them off by heart, then you'll know that Judah and Benjamin would make up the 10 to make it 12. But they had some common, Israel had a common enemy, an enemy that was there for hundreds of years. Edom, or really, let us say Esau, because Edomites are from the family of, and their father, they could say, was or is Esau. But they despised Israel, or they wanted Israel destroyed. And there were some other nations also. You had the Moabites, you had the Ammonites, you had the Edomites, you had the Amalekites, and the Amalekites the Amalekite, Amalek, was the grandson of Esau. The first grandson of Esau. So God's people, from the moment that they left Egypt to go to the promised land, the enemy was out there. I really do not believe that they did not know, or that they didn't believe that their enemy would not attack them. I believe that they did believe. I believe that. But they shouldn't have been in the wilderness for 40 years. That is what they were not banking on at all. It was only supposed to take a couple of days, 2-3 days. Again, that's what it is said. I mean, time, again, and knowledge has increased, so the number of days could be far more different. But let's just talk on what we know so far. And when you look and examine the enemies, their enemies, Israel's enemies, they were family. Most often than not, it was family. Esau was the brother of Jacob. So, Jacob or Esau Esau was the uncle, and his children, they would have been cousins, first, second, third, fourth, all the way down to the generations. Edomites, never mind Amalek. Then you had Lot, who was the nephew of Abraham, and he was some cousin again, whether it 1, 2, 3 removed, but you had Ammon and Moab. So you had that kind of dynamic going on down in the Middle East, and it's still raging today. Sad to say, it's a squabble. Anyhow, you know whether wherever you live, if you know that there isn't any cause for you to get in amongst a family when they're not happy with each other, you would stay far away, wouldn't you? Don't get involved in family squabbles and family issues. Don't. And so anyway, we're going to see in this 15th or 15 verses of chapter 35, where again Adonai is proclaiming really that the enemies of God's people are going to be destroyed. Even bringing it down to our day and time. We who are the wild olive branch engrafted, the enemies that are against us will be destroyed. The enemies is going to be destroyed. And it's not that we of ourselves, we are going to destroy them, but it is God. It is God. And so, I'm going to read, as I've said before, all 35, all of chapter 35, 15 verses. This is just the introduction. And then in the subsequent sessions, we'll cover some areas where God said he's going to defend. He will defend his people, and he will fight for them and destroy the enemies of his people. Chapter 35, reading from verse 1. I'll read from the Jewish text there, because it's interesting how it's interesting how it sounds and reads to me as I've read it, and I'll read it out to you. It really is. It does something to my mind as far as understanding the scripture is concerned. The word of Adonai came to me, human being, turn your face against Mount Seir, prophesy against it, and say that Adonai Elohim says, I am against you, Mount Seir. I will stretch out my hand against you and make you utterly desolate. I will make your city ruins and make you an utter waste, and you will know that I am Adonai. Because of your long-standing hatred, you put the people of Israel to the sword at their time of calamity, at the time of their final iniquity. Therefore, as I live, says Adonai Elohim, swears, I will prepare you for blood. Blood will pursue you. You intensely hate your own blood relatives. Therefore, blood will pursue you. Yes, I will make Mount Seir utterly desolate, cutting off from it anyone passing through or returning. I will fill his mountains with his slain. In your hills and valleys and in all your ravines will fall those slain by the sword. I will turn you into perpetual ruins. Your cities will not return, and you will know that I am Adonai. Verse 10. Because you say, these two nations, these two countries will be mine, we will take possession of them, even though Adonai is there. Therefore, as I live, swears Adonai Elohim, I will deal with you as your anger and envy arises from your hatred deserve. And I will make myself known among them when I judge you. You will know that I, Adonai, have heard all your blasphemous talk against the mountains of Israel, such as they are desolated, they are given to us to devour. Moreover, you have boasted against Adonai Elohim. Sorry, let me read verse 13 again. Moreover, you have boasted against me with your mouth, speaking more and more against me. I have heard it. Here is what Adonai Elohim says, to the joy of all the land I will desolate you. Since you rejoiced over possessing the house of Israel, because it was desolate, that is what I will do to you. You will be desolate. Mount Seir and all Edom, all of it. Then they will know that I am Adonai. So yes, we've come to the end here of reading of chapter 35. We are hearing very clearly what God has said against the Edomites, against Esau. Now, as I was reading it just again, what really came out to me and was impressed was upon me in relation to Esau was we can just about imagine what Esau was feeling against Jacob way back then, long before, let's say, he had children. I mean, I believe when it was when Jacob left his parents' home. The scriptures tell us there, I believe it is in Genesis there, that Esau went and married the daughters of Canaan, a Canaanite woman, and that displeased his parents greatly. And from what I can probably understand or see for me, really, and I could be wrong, is that probably Jacob started having children long before Esau had children. Again, that's for you to come back to me and tell me and inform me. I probably may know the answer to the question, but I just want to provoke you because the answers probably are out there. However, let it not come between you and I. But then we can more or less just feel the hate, feel and hear what Esau and how Esau felt towards Jacob way back then. Now again, we are told and we were informed that Esau and Jacob, they met, didn't they? Remember that great and eventful night when Elijah met the Lord, and everybody knows that they met him. They met each other after that very famous fight between Jacob and the angel. They met each other the following day. They fell on each other's necks. They wept because Jacob really didn't know how Esau was about, how he felt again towards him. It was a cut-off. No family, no communication, no nothing. So Jacob still felt really that because of the way how he cheated Esau, his brother, out of the birthright and all of that, and didn't say bye-bye to him, then Jacob was probably very, very nervous in meeting Esau. And we see that hatred, we can see that those feelings, those corrupt, sinful, fleshy feelings that Esau must have had. His people, Edom, are now expressing exactly how they were feeling in relation to Israel. I wonder if we've ever thought about that. And there's other things that could be said. There's nothing wrong in thinking. There's nothing wrong in allowing our minds to roam around within reason. Again, there's nothing wrong in getting your research books of reference. But I believe, my friends, that, in relation to chapter 35, that if we take on board that which the Lord has spoken to Edom about, God is going to do the same in time to come. This again is very prophetic. The enemies of God's people, our enemies, Well, our enemies is God's enemies. They're really fighting against God because there's nothing that we can do. I ain't got no weapon. The only weapon of warfare I have really is God, is the Holy Spirit. So I must surrender myself to Him because He's the one that fights my battle. But at the end of time, Revelation again tells us very clearly that the Messiah is going to allow the sword, the word of God, to come from out of his mouth to destroy the very enemy that's going to come out of the bottomless pit. And all of God's enemies are going to be destroyed and placed in the lake of fire. But anyway, God bless you. Thank you so much again for connecting with us. And we hope and we trust that as we go into this particular chapter, chapter 35, when it talks the enemies of God's people are going to be destroyed, that they are truly, that we truly must believe that. We have to believe it. Don't doubt. Don't shirk from your very lofty position, in a sense that you are safe in the hands of God. No, don't move from that position at all. Stay under the shadow of the Almighty. Whatever it is that you're doing or you're seeing or whatever it is that is plaguing you, plaguing me, plaguing us, then we must leave all of these things behind. Place them in God's hand, and God will deal with all of these things. So may God bless you, and I trust and I hope that the next time we meet, we're going to be looking at verses 1 through to 4 of chapter 35, and in that we'll be looking at the enemy rejected by God, and God takes a stand against the enemy. So may God bless you. Bless you.